It is my pleasure to introduce you to Gillard Stern. He is a management consultant in Cape Town and a keen mountaineer. He has a master's degree in public administration. He's worked for the past 28 years as a management consultant, but as an active mountaineer and an abseil supervisor and trail runner too. Gillard spends a lot of time on Table Mountain. He has an interest in linguistic anthropology, especially the language of race and prejudice. He lectures here at UCT on management at the Commerce faculty. Gillard loves the movies.
Thanks
so
very
thank
much.
You very much. Thank you.
Okay, this is yours. Thank you very much for coming today. I'm grateful. When I chose the topic today, which is Brexit and the implications of the... Okay, if you thought you were coming to the lecture on Brexit, you're at the wrong place. You know, people walk into a movie, they stir Kindercore number 5, and they suddenly realize, oops, we're in the wrong movie. If you were expecting anything intellectual and heavy, then you'd best not be here. This is about the movies. There's nothing about Brexit. If you want something really boring and dull and intellectual, I recommend that you come next week and listen to Dennis Davis, my classmate, who will be speaking about constitutional matters. He's going to be very dense, and it's going to be nothing like today. You'll learn a great deal from him, and I guarantee you that you'll learn nothing today. By the way, these remarks were approved by him. Today we're going to be talking about the movies. What a nice thing to be able to do, and you'll be able to see a bit of the movies. We'll be showing some film clips. I'm hoping that afterwards, when you go home, you'll say, oh, what a delightful talk. What is it about? I'm not really sure what it was about, but there were some great movie clips which we got to see. We'll finish at 6 today, and then without any further ado, I'm ready for the lights to come down, and we can get started on the movies. I'll be saying a few things about them, and I first wanted to start with this particular movie, which is, what movie is this over here? This is a movie called Ben-Hur. I'd like to place, first of all, this following clip over here. Charlton Heston is the main character over there, and he has been taken into captivity by the Romans. Some of you may recall this. It's from 50 years ago, 1959 movie. And at a certain point, he's thirsty, desperate to drink, and a man gives him water. And who's that man? That man is Jesus. We don't see his face at that particular moment, but we see the way that Ben-Hur looks at him. He gives Ben-Hur water. Ben-Hur drinks. The story continues. I won't spoil it for those of you who haven't seen it yet, still planning to see it this week. But we meet up with Ben-Hur at a later stage. And the stage that we meet up with Jesus again, it's a religious movie, is, I'm looking aloud over here, at 4 minutes 45 into my particular clip over here, I'm speaking aloud, where we see Jesus carrying the cross through Jerusalem.
Pity on him.
And then we see a few minutes later in the movie, we see Jesus breaking through the crowds and then performing this act, Ben-Hur breaking through the crowds and then doing the following. Ben-Hur has given water to Jesus to drink. So, of course, this sets off what you saw originally at the beginning of the movie, where Jesus defies the Roman soldiers and gives water to Ben-Hur. At the end of the movie, you see the scene of Christ, the crucifixion. And finally, there's a scene quite near to the end of the movie when you see Ben-Hur being reunited with his family. And his family was stricken, you might recall in the movie, with leprosy. And you see this incredible scene as follows. So they've been cured of leprosy. So the film Ben-Hur, I'm talking about love today in the first instance, love then and love now, is an instance which I thought was interesting because there's a reciprocity over here. In the beginning of the movie, Christ gives water to Ben-Hur to drink. Later in the movie, Ben-Hur gives water to Christ. He returns the favor, as it was. And I thought it was an interesting example of transactional love. I'm not meaning to suggest anything about the real story of Christ, although the story Ben-Hur is set in the story of Christ. Most of it is written, composed by Jewish people. That's another story for another day. But I'm suggesting over here that there may have been a departure in this movie from a formula which had served Hollywood and humanity possibly for many years and many centuries, the idea of love as given. And this film introduces the idea of love as reciprocal. Jesus gives water to Ben-Hur. Ben-Hur gives water later in the movie to Jesus. There's a symmetry. Ben-Hur's family is healed. He feels very grateful to Jesus. It's an interesting movie. It was very popular at the time. It is probably the largest budget of any movie ever made up till that time. The role of Ben-Hur was Charlton Heston. It was turned down by Paul Newman. You know why Paul Newman turned down the starring role as Ben-Hur? He said he didn't have the legs to appear in the tunic. That is actually serious. The Romans in the movie were all cast with, they were cast as British actors. The Jews were cast as American actors because the producers hoped that the audience would feel more familiar with those with American accents, who were the Jews, and feel less familiar and disdainful towards the British actors who were the Romans. They were, as one of the commentators said afterwards, they appeared as Nazis dressed in tunics, also with these short skirts. The movie was very powerful, but it introduced this idea, and I started off today with a love which isn't a romantic love between men and men or men and women. I thought I'd start off with this particular one and then move on to something of a more traditional nature. In this particular clip, which you'll probably know as well, I'm trying to get this over here. I don't know why it's not working more. Paul, I think this is time to help me. Open over here, sorry. Okay, I've got it over there.
Come down.
No.
Maria.
You remember this movie? This is West Side Story. Listen to the words.
Maria, see only me.
Maria says the words, see only me. Well, it's an interesting idea of love over here. There's some beautiful idealized love. She says to him, see only me. And then she sings this film, which I'm sure you've all recall, this beautiful film from the movie, which made the movie quite famous. Leonard Bernstein was the composer of the music. You probably remember this. She sings the song.
Tonight, the world is wild and bright, going mad, shooting sparks into space. Today, the world was just an address of...
So that's an example of idealized love. The story is, of course, the story of Romeo and Juliet, an old story which appealed to audiences, set in New York. It wasn't originally supposed to be between the particular factions that it was between. There were different versions of it beforehand. But these are two star-crossed lovers, and they come in the middle of a political conflict, and it's really about love in the context of politics. So there's social upheaval happening at the time, and people trying to have a love affair in the midst of all that social upheaval. A film, that film was from 1961. We're going through the last 50 years. And what I'm suggesting is that some changes have taken place in how we look at lovers, at men, at women, at what love has been in the last 50 years. Well, I'll play a little bit longer clip now of this particular one because it's so evocative. And I think it's a film which, if they made it today, they'd probably be arrested for the things that they're saying in this particular clip.
Why can't a woman be more like a man? I beg your pardon? Yes, why can't a woman be more like a man? Men are so honest, so thoroughly square, eternally noble, historically fair. But when you win, we'll always give your back a pat. But why can't a woman be like that? Why does everyone do what the others do? Can't a woman learn to use her head? Why do they do everything their mothers do? Why don't they grow up, well, like their father instead?
So, to give you some context, can you imagine if I said these words to you? Why can't a woman... I would be arrested. Penny Sparrow only got 2 years in jail. I get life in jail. To give an idea of the context, here are two men singing, and I remember the words by heart. I grew up on this movie. I know every song by heart. Why can't a woman be more like a man? The language from the perspective of 2019 is so garish, it's so ridiculous, that if I wasn't talking to an audience of similar old folks like me, I'd be embarrassed at even showing the clip. But listen to a little bit more about why can't a woman be more like a man, and listen to some of the egregious things he says.
Why can't a woman take after a man? Men are so pleasant, so easy to please. Whenever you're with them, you're always at ease. Would you be slighted if I didn't speak for hours?
Of course not.
Would you be livid if I had a drink or two?
Nonsense.
Would you be wounded if I never sent you flowers?
Never.
Well, why can't a woman be like you? One man in a million may shout a bit. Now and then there's one with slight defects. One perhaps whose truthfulness you doubt a bit, but by and large, we are a marvelous sex. Why can't a woman take after a man? Because men are so friendly, good-natured and kind. A better companion you never will find.
So what is these two men's relationship? Obviously their names are, the one is Henry Higgins and the other one is? Rex Harrison is Henry Higgins and the other one is Colonel Pickering. You know it. I chose my audience well. I'm going to be testing you when we see a clip from Black Beauty, which is probably going to be the highest grossing movie of all time and probably be the Oscar winner this year. I want to see if you recognize the actors' names as well. But I suppose we're all getting on. So in this movie, we have a look at these two men, and who are they? What are they? They have a woman living in the house. Her name is? Eliza Doolittle. What is she doing there? They're reshaping her. They're training her. They're making her into something else. She is a lowly street girl. Well, what is a street girl? We'll be coming to Pretty Woman and seeing what a street girl may be. She speaks badly, but there's an implication that she's of poor quality, and they're raising up a quality. And there are other women in the house. What's the name of the housekeeper? Mrs. Pierce. Very good. She's in the house as well. And what is the nature of the relationship between Henry Higgins and Colonel Pickering? Listen to a little bit more.
If I were hours late for dinner, would you bellow?
Of course
If
not.
I forgot your silly birthday, would you fuss?
Nonsense.
Would you complain if I took out another fellow?
Would you complain if I took out another fellow? So I wonder to myself if this is some early indication in the movies of some a gay relationship. What am I to think? If I was in this particular place and Eliza Doolittle, that beautiful Audrey Hepburn, is sleeping somewhere, I might be excited at the very thought. Are they excited? Do they care? Are these two gay men at that time just having an experiment with a woman? Are they asexual? They seem to be asexual. Would you be angry if I went out with another guy? And then he turns to Mrs. Pierce, and she's done it in the most absolutely asexual way in the movie.
Well, why can't a woman be like us? Mrs. Pierce, you're a woman. Why can't a woman be more like a man?
Look at her.
Men are so decent, such regular chaps, ready to help you through any mishaps, ready to buck you up whenever you are glum. Why can't a woman be a chum?
So Mrs. Pierce is also deliciously asexual. She's matronly. And I think to myself, what did My Fair Lady introduce at that time? And who are these characters? Rex Harrison. Rex Harrison, anyone know? Was he a gay man, straight man, anyone know? Straight. Married man? Married 6 times. One of his wives even killed herself for him. She was divorced from him, she wanted to marry him again, and she committed suicide. She was so crazy about him. What was there to be so crazy about? I don't know. But the implication of this movie is that there's a bond between men and women are outside of that bond. And I think it's an early indication to us of a new style, of a new theme coming into movies. It's deliciously, I don't know what to say, it's so politically incorrect that it is a delicious choice, and I find myself worried about my own life that I used to find this the most wonderful movie, sing the songs with my classmate, and today I look at it and say, wow, either I've got old or the world has really changed. The next movie we're going to see 2 clips from, it's a movie which is one you may recall. Dustin Hoffman is in The Graduate. This is a movie from 1967. By the way, the movies that I've chosen for today's lecture are almost always the movies which in their year won the Oscar as the best movie or best director. I've only chosen what were considered in their time the best movies. The Graduate was considered an outstanding movie at the time. And the person you're seeing is Dustin Hoffman, whose name is Ben. And that woman over there is her name. Anyone know her name? Her name is indeed Catherine Ross. And she is the daughter of the woman who Ben has been having an affair with, whose name is Mrs. Robinson. And she's getting married to another man, and Ben breaks in at the end, and we're going to be dealing with religion now, and tries to stop the wedding. He's too late to stop the wedding. Watch.
Where's that guy? What's he doing? Take care of him. He's too late.
That's Mrs. Robinson. She doesn't rush to him. She's confused. She's uncertain. She knows that he's been having an affair with her mother, but he's tried to persuade her that Mrs. Robinson, her mother, seduced him and not the other way around as the mother has told him. So she hesitates for a moment. This is the very end of the movie, and then he runs down and he wields an implement. What does he take as an implement? He grabs the cross. They're about to run out. We're at the very end. There are 3 minutes left of the entire movie. And at that point, they're in the church. This is a scandalous movie. What does he do with the cross? So he takes the cross and he bars the door with the cross. Now, this movie is not to be taken lightly. The symbol was outrageous at the time. At the time, in America, it's still a country in the Western world where an enormous amount of people go to church, unlike England, for example, or Europe. But this was an enormously symbolic thing. He takes the crucifix, he uses it as a weapon, and then he blocks the doors of the church with the crucifix. I'm going to go now to the other clip that I have, which is a continuation of this particular scene. They've come out of the church, and then they find, as they come out of the church, they see a bus. They get in the bus. We're 2 minutes from the very end of the movie. There's still high drama. How will this matter reconcile? How will they end the movie? How will the director, whose name, by the way, is Mike Nichols, you might remember him, it wasn't his original given name, his original name was Mikhail Peshkovsky, but how will they... By the way, you know about Mike Nichols. He was married. I just want to say, seeing we're talking about love and marriage, he was married, but he did have a long-term affair with the photographer Richard Avedon. So he was bisexual. But in this movie, he's got 2 minutes till the movie ends, and look how he ends the movie. They're pleased with themselves. That's her looking out over there. She's pleased with what she's done. She just escaped from a marriage. She's run off with him. Her name, by the way, you're correct, was, of course, Catherine Ross. And what success did she make of her love life? Well, guess what? She was married how many times? She was married 5 times. So I could conclude, if I was maybe a marriage therapist, that she wasn't particularly good at it. But she was married, and she still is, to Sam Elliott. And she'd been married to him for 34 years. And she'd been together with him for 45 years. So, you know, she didn't get it right the first time, but the fifth time, she seems to have got it very right with Sam Elliott, who we will touch on other things. So now they're both very pleased with themselves. The movie is 1 minute away from ending. And watch how the genius, Mike Nichols, ends a staggering movie and ushers us into a new era of the world. Watch the next minute. It's remarkable.
Hello, darkness, my old friend. I've come to talk with you again. Because a vision softly creeping left its seeds while I was sleeping. And the vision that was planted in my brain still remains within the sound of silence. In restless dreams I walk alone. Now streets of...
America is in chaos. America's got the Vietnam War. This is a film with an ending of deep uncertainty. They start off on a caper. They get into the bus, they're happy, and then there are no smiles after that. They're facing an uncertain future, as is America. You see the back of the bus, you see this haunting song by Paul Simon. We don't know what it means, we don't know where America is going. I think that I refer to this film as a film about love and marriage. Well, you know the old saying from the musical, love and marriage is like a... So love and marriage changed. The things that were once certain about the world became uncertain. In America, around about this time, not because of the movie, but divorce rates started to skyrocket. Hollywood was always famous for lots of divorces. And this is a movie in 1967 which ushered in a great era of uncertainty in America. I don't know if it's the movie that did it or the movie was a reflection of it, but the movie The Graduate at its time was a significant movie. Now we're going to go on to another movie which is about...
The failure of the country to get behind New York City is anti-Semitic.
You recognize it?
The city is terribly run. But I'm not discussing politics.
So the movie is called Annie Hall. And that actress over there is Diane Keaton, and her original name before she got married was Diane Hall. The script was written for her. Diane Keaton, Annie Hall, was Diane Hall, and the part and the script were written for her, and it's a Woody Allen movie. So I would like you to see probably the quintessential awkward scene when, up till this point in time in history, all movies have shown lovers to be relatively confident. Look at these appalling lovers in the scene where they first meet.
Hi. Hi. Hi.
Oh, hi. Hi.
Well, bye.
You play very well.
Oh, yeah? So do you. Oh, God, what a dumb thing to say, right? I mean, you say it, you play well, and then right away I have to say you play well. Oh, God, Annie. Well, oh, well. La-di-da, la-di-da, la-la, yeah.
You want a lift?
Oh, why? You got a car?
No, I was going to take a cab.
Oh, no, I have a car.
Do you have a car? So, I don't understand what, if you have a car, any place, Asia.
So that's a scene of people meeting awkwardly. The idea of being awkward in a movie in love was created in this fantastic movie, Annie Hall. It is about love as trauma, love as indecision. In one particular instance in the movie, Elvie, the Woody Allen character, starts asking people on a pavement what they think love is about. And one of the people on the pavement says to him, a woman says to him, love fades. Now, nobody had ever done that in a movie before. Love was romanticized, but the idea of a central character asking somebody what love is about, and the person says love fades. Does it fade? Well, of course it does. There's a first period, there's a later period. We become more realistic about what love can be. There's other beautiful quotes from the movie. One person said that this is a story the story Annie Hall. For anyone who falls in love, then falls out of love and goes on. It's about a breakup. Elvie says, love is irrational and crazy and absurd. In fact, Elvie, the main character, who's Woody Allen, also said about this, and I think we're covering different types of love, we should give everything a mention. He said, don't knock masturbation, it's sex with somebody I love. But I thought I'd end off on this wonderful short note from the end, from a little bit later in the movie.
Yeah. And I love what you're wearing.
Oh, you do? Yeah? Oh, well, it's, this tie is a present from Grammy Hall.
Who? Grammy? Grammy Hall?
Yeah, my Grammy.
What are you kidding? What did you grow up in a Norman Rockwell painting?
Yeah, I know.
Your Grammy?
I know, it's pretty...
So he's Jewish, she's quintessential WASP. The clothes she's wearing became a fashion for about 10 years afterwards. I can tell you something about the designer, the woman who made the clothes. Very interesting story. But they're from different ethnic backgrounds. The film is about love. They fall in love, they fall out of love. The film Annie Hall is also a film about New York. Commentators have written about the film being a love affair with New York. It shows the vistas of New York. Woody Allen's a person totally in love with New York. And it's a story about the complexity of love. And I suppose it introduced a new element that didn't exist before. Cross-cultural love, we'll see more of that later. But watch just another few seconds.
She said, my Grammy never gave gifts, you know. She was too busy getting raped by Cossacks.
Well, I suppose that is particularly funny, I suppose. So now I'd like to just give a warning. If there are people over here who find certain erotic scenes offensive, there will be 2 erotic scenes. One coming later if I have time. I'm not sure how many movies I'll cover from The Wolf of Wall Street. You've been warned. But I'm about to play you the most erotic scene that I've ever seen in any movie in my life. I don't know if you find water particularly erotic, but I particularly do. And you're about to see a scene from Out of Africa. Out of Africa is a movie starring, who was starring Out of Africa? It was Meryl Streep and Robert Redford. They're lovers. There's tragedy. This is a film about romance and tragedy in a non-political context. West Side Story was about a political context. Here there's no real political context. There's a war going on, but it's a woman who has been badly hurt. Her husband has given her the gift of syphilis. And then she meets with Robert Redford. Robert Redford is this beautiful, shining, handsome character. His name is Dennis Finch Hatton. Dennis Finch Hatton, the real character on whom this is based, is buried in the Ngong Hills in Kenya. On his grave it says the words from Coleridge, "He loveth well both man and bird and beast." And in this particular scene, which I would ask those of you with sensitive natures to avert your gaze, the scene isn't very long, it's less than a minute. You're about to see the most erotic scene that I've ever seen in a movie, and I think that the censors would do well to probably ban this because it's really only for very mature audiences.
I can fix that, I think. Laughed loud and long, and all the while his eyes went to and fro. "Ha ha," quoth he, "full plain I see. The devil knows how to row. Farewell, farewell."
You're skipping verses.
Well, I leave out the dull parts.
He's reading her poetry while washing her hair in an African landscape.
Farewell, farewell.
Watch.
But this I tell to thee, thou wedding guest.
Stop. As you watch it, look at her eyes, and you will learn everything you need to learn about love for the rest of your lives from the next few seconds when you look at her eyes looking at him. Watch.
Lay your head back. He prayeth well, who loveth well, both man and bird and beast. That's better.
Now, look, there is no other scene to compare in the world. That is the most erotic scene. You'd have to have a heart of utter stone to not be moved. Whether you're a guy or a chick or whatever, he washes her hair, she stares at him with love. It's utter, total eroticism. So the film is about love and tragedy. What happens to Dennis, the Robert Redford character? He dies. He dies, the tragedy of it all, he dies in a plane crash. So it's a story about love, romance, tragedy, illness, circumstance. The next movie is indeed a remarkable movie. It contains a black man and a white woman You'll recognize it immediately. The scene I've got is from near the end of the movie, and you'll probably recognize without too much difficulty. Driving Miss Daisy.
Will he paying you still?
Giveaway?
How much?
That's between him and me.
Morgan Freeman is the old man. He was less old when the movie was made. Jessica Tandy was the actress, a Jewish woman in the movie, who was married actually in real life to Jack Hawkins, who is in my talk tomorrow in the film The Bridge Over the River Kwai. You'll see a little shot of him. That's just to advertise that there's a continuation. You've paid for two, you might as well come tomorrow. It's about heroes and villains. Morgan Freeman takes the role of Hoke Colburn. Morgan Freeman's been quite disgraced in the last year, so he's probably at home keeping bees, which is what he does. But over here, this is a film about a love which develops between an employer and employee, and it's also something which has to do with being black and being white, which is part of the conceit of the movie. So she's now in an old age home. She's had a stroke or something like that. Watch the next few very tender moments.
All there is to it, then. Let me.
So this is a tremendously tender scene. At the time when the movie is made, the movie becomes remarkably popular, it's 1989. And the introduction of a black person in a situation like that was, at its time, quite a demonstrative thing. Today we take it for granted that there are lots of movies about blacks and whites, but at the time all of these were almost avant-garde adventures into something different. You all recall the famous movie Sidney Poitier. It was called Guess Who's Coming to Dinner? But that at the time was a remarkable movie. But at this time, this movie was itself remarkable. There's a film on the circuit at the moment, and it's one of the Oscar contenders this year, which shows a black man who is an artist, who is a musician, being driven around in the United States by a white man. Some of you may have seen the trailer of it. So that's an almost reversal of this particular movie. So that's a movie which I described as the complexity of age, employment, and complex issues. I'm now getting to my favorite movie, which is the best movie ever made, and it's Pretty Woman. And I want to take this movie to this particular moment over here, where you see the following happening. They're going out. She is a prostitute. He picked her up on Rodeo Drive. His name in the real life is Richard Gere. He's remarkably handsome. Her name is, of course, and of course, this movie, which I could give 15 lectures on and know every sequence, she's looking magnificent. She's a prostitute which is cleaned up. The parallels to My Fair Lady, I don't have to point out to you. She's from the street. She's a prostitute. Why did she become a prostitute? Not because she loved to be a prostitute, because circumstances such. She tells a story. He's the knight in shining armor. He's the person who comes, as it were, to rescue her, but he's a venal, terrible person. All he cares about money and deals. He's had a terrible childhood. And at this particular scene, he's taking her out to the opera, and there's a particular line over here. He's dressed her up in his clothes, you may remember. He's borrowed this or hired for the evening the beautiful necklace, and listen to the next few lines.
So where are we going?
Surprise.
Don't forget to tell you later. I had a really good time.
Thank you.
She's self-conscious, but she's beautiful. Everyone loves love.
I'm picturing you very beautiful, very tall.
And then he takes her in the limousine, he takes her to his airplane, they fly on the airplane, they get to the opera, he's late for the opera, he says, don't worry about it, not a problem.
No, it's
So what is Pretty Woman about? To me, it's a 1990 film. It's really about transactional love, I suppose. It's about the theme that I started off with today, the idea of transactionality. It's about sex and love. He hires her probably not for sex, because that isn't very clear in the movie, but she really is a prostitute. But she gets something from him, he gives something to her, and then when the week or two is over in the hotel, they part and go their separate ways, and that's the end of the movie. No. No, it's not the end of the movie. The movie is deliciously romantic. He drives in his car. He comes to fetch her. He's scared of heights. There's that wonderful scene. It's utterly romantic. And think what we are. We're the audience, and we're watching a movie about a guy with money getting involved with a prostitute. Of course, we can romanticize it. Prostitutes in the movies are always wonderful people. We know that. And they have the greatest, biggest hearts and so on. But it is really quite a venal movie if you think about it. Rich guy and lots of money. We'll be touching on the theme again tomorrow in a movie which I referred to in the intro to the course, which is a movie called The Sound of Music, which is a similarly venal film, you'll remember, about a rich guy, Baron von Trapp, who's engaged to a woman who falls for the au pair, Maria. You remember, he comes to the au pair and he falls in love with her. So he has a relationship with an employee. Of course, it'll be banned today, but more about that tomorrow, because I've got that in the criteria tomorrow of heroes and villains. I want to get onto a movie which I expect you all know, and you'll know what's going to happen in this particular movie. But here you see Jerry Maguire, who is Tom Cruise, and he's running, and he's wanting to run to claim back his wife who he's been estranged from. He's just had a big moment. You've all seen Jerry Maguire, correct? What's the famous line? No, don't say it now. So that's Jerry Maguire, and the women are sitting around over here.
You know, Alice, you were saying earlier something about the biorhythms.
A group of women are sitting around and they're complaining about men and relationships.
It's hard for people to change. That's why behavior doesn't change very often.
I'm sorry.
And then at a certain point, he comes into the house.
Hello?
And he says, hello. Well, I'll just go a little bit later. He says the word hello, and I'll go to this moment over here where he's going to make a speech and try and redeem himself and try and claim his wife back. This is the moment over here. He is the master of words. He's Jerry Maguire. He's an agent. He can just get the words together. I love you. You complete me. Beautiful words, but we're cynical. We don't like him. And this is what now happens.
Just you had me at hello.
You had me at hello. So I think this movie is about, for me, about love and repair. I think that part of love is being able to repair. If things don't get broken, that's not really love. And if you have the ability to repair it, that's important. And this is a wonderful scene about love and repair. The ability to take something which is broken, do what you need to do, find acceptance, and love and repair. So that's also part of love. Part of love is the tragedies, the difficulties which occur along the way, and the ability to repair. But then along came a movie in 1997, which was the biggest budget movie ever made until that point, and has scenes which I'm sure you're all familiar with. I won't play much of it. The movie is Titanic.
Hello, Jack.
Now close your eyes. Go on. Step up. Now hold on to the railing. Keep your eyes closed. Don't peek.
I'm not.
Step up onto the rail. Hold on. Hold on. Keep your eyes closed. Do you trust me?
I trust you.
flying.
Well, that's about love and tragedy, because the movie is called Titanic, and we all know before we watch the movie what's going to happen to Titanic. We all know the end of the story. The movie starts off with her as an old woman talking about what happened, and we know he's dead. So love and tragedy, isn't that a wonderful theme? The lovers who we know are destined for some terrible tragedy, but the love which they experience in this beautiful scene over here, we remember and we take it as a massive blockbuster when it was made. Now I'm going to go on to a different movie which had a tremendous following. This is a movie from 2005, Slumdog Millionaire. Jai Ho, that's the final scene. The movie, when it came out, was the most unexpected movie. It gathered a tremendous reception in the Western world. It is based on certain Indian movie-making concepts, so I haven't really included much from other particular movie-making centers, but the movie industry in India is a big one, and this is one which seemed to cross over. So it also has protagonists in the movie who are all not white. There are very few or virtually no white people in the movie. And it's an interesting development. It got tremendous acceptance in the Western world, became a very popular movie, and Slumdog Millionaire was a movie from 2005. I'm now going to show you a truly awful movie, which is the Wolf of Wall Street. And I'd like to apologize in advance, and I'm not being funny now. The scene is garish. There's nothing terribly difficult to watch. But it is a movie, I'll give you the context of those of you who didn't see it. It's a movie really which is about lovers who are absolutely disgusting. It's about love as sleaze. It's about love as pornography. It's about a sense of watching two people that you're about to watch who are clearly having a deep relationship. There's something very electric between them, but what is between them is utterly sleazy. And I'm not referring just to the sexual arousal which they get, but to the moments which happen towards the end of the clip where you'll see what I'm talking about. So this is a movie from 2013, The Wolf of Wall Street. To me, it signifies that something has changed in the world as I knew it. I'm how old am I? I'm 67 years old now, and this movie was quite shocking. So this is a little cut from The Wolf of Wall Street.
Good morning, Daddy. Where's my kiss?
There's a child, and I'm going to the scene without the child now.
Daddy, Mommy is just so sick and tired of wearing panties.
Yeah?
Yeah. In fact, she's decided to throw them all away. So take a good look, Daddy. You're gonna be seeing an awful lot of this around the house.
Yeah, Mommy. Yeah.
But no touching.
Look at this shit.
Mommy likes to play games with Daddy. Mommy, have you ever noticed anything odd about Mr. Fuzzy Bear over there? His eyes seem to be a little bit odd, don't they? Yeah, there's something a little bit different about his eyes.
Yes, I think it's true. Say hi, Mommy. Say hi to Rocco and Rocco. Say hi. Hi, fellas. See that, huh?
Of all the fucking days, she chooses today to give me blue balls. With Naomi.
So that is a film from 2013. It was a magnificent but awful movie. And I want to just pause for a few minutes. I've got two more clips to show you. The last one's going to be about 3 minutes long. I just want to say something. Should I maybe get this off the screen? This is just too awful. So I think I will take this off the screen so you don't have to be burdened by watching this over here. And I want to say something about love. 2 movies left to watch. One of them is Black Panther. I think there's been a transition. None of us are as young as we used to be. The movies have changed. We've changed. The world has changed. I think there's a tension that I feel today in my daily life whereby a lot of people think that a lot of things have changed. I said I wasn't talking about Brexit in the beginning. That is just a joke. But people refer to Brexit and say things aren't the way they were. Look at Trump in America, look at Brexit, look at the world has changed. And I sometimes wonder if the world really has changed. The things that I took for granted, which were wholesome and good when I was growing up, like My Fair Lady was a marvelous movie about Eliza Doolittle going to a ball, I'm wondering, has the world really changed and become a less innocent place? When My Fair Lady won the Oscar, well, I thought that is just the way the world worked. But now I see that you can get an Oscar for this film, The Wolf of Wall Street, and I'm wondering what has changed. Have we changed? Has the world changed? Do movies reflect the way the world is? Or are movies, in a sense, maybe forerunner of what's to come? So I find myself at this stage of my life loving movies, but often feeling uncomfortable in movies. And the experience that I want to relate to you is the experience which I had when I went to see the film Black Panther in the last year. So in the recommended reading or watching for this course, I suggested two movies. I think it was Pretty Woman and Black Panther. Will you raise your hands, those of you who have seen Black Panther? So we have an utter minority of people who have seen it. Now, I went to see it because I heard it was such a provocative movie and absolutely hated the movie. Like, shoot me now. Like, really. Oh, I couldn't stand the movie. But I suppose I wasn't the target audience of the movie. I'm an old white guy. And the movie is really made from a different premise entirely. The movie is a massively significant movie, and I'd recommend to you, all of you, to see it. It's been on the circuits. It'll be on the circuits again. It's a shoo-in, I think, for big success in the Oscars. And the movie Black Panther is based on Marvel comic characters, but the protagonists in the movie are black, and the movie deals with fighting and war, succession, and love. I'll play you a bit of this clip over here, which has to do with the issue of love. And you'll see some of the characters and some of the way it works over here. It's not a long clip. Hold on a second. I'm not doing this over here. I'm doing it. Okay, got it. I'm starting over here. You'll see the love section coming right about now.
It was my duty to fight for what I love.
Can't blame me, I almost died. Stay. I think I know a way you can stay if I feel your calling. Please stay.
The country they're in is called Wakanda. So I can't emphasize enough how big a development I think this is if I compare it to the movies of my youth, because the landscape has changed. First of all, the idea of seeing gay people in movies today is nothing. When the first gay characters came into movies, it was remarkable. When the first black people started appearing in movies as substantial actors and people in their own rights, it was a remarkable development. Some of the original black people in movies were adjuncts to white people. Like Morgan Freeman was a driver to Jessica Tandy, driving Miss Daisy. And now black people are featuring in movies as central characters. In fact, this film, Black Panther, is about black people. And there are references to white people in the movie. So in a number of scenes, you'll see black people in the movie putting down or jeering at or making fun of white people. And I remember watching the movie, seeing it in a movie theater, and I felt, as a white person, maybe to some degree uncomfortable. I'm not really sure what I was feeling. And I heard the audience, which was laughing, and I thought to myself, how do I feel about this? It was a difficult experience for me. I felt my age. But then I reflected on some of the other experiences of my life. How often in my life did I see movies which showed, for example, British soldiers or American soldiers humiliating German soldiers in a World War II setting? And I might have laughed at the idiotic German soldiers who were made to look like complete idiots, and I might have enjoyed it and laughed. So I now have to transpose these ideas and think, maybe I am a minority in a sense today as well. Whereas once the movies depicted me as majoritarian because of my positionality as a white man, today I'm no longer as central. Once upon the movies could show Rex Harrison singing, "Why can't a woman be more like a man, be like us?" That is from a majoritarian point of view. And I feel myself today in a less majoritarian position than I used to be. I acknowledge that a great deal has changed about me, about my life. And I acknowledge that a great deal has changed about the movies and about the world. I'm not sure any of this makes sense, but I find myself at this particular age feeling a certain nostalgia. I like the trip down memory lane of seeing the movies. I like the things that the movies evoke for me. And I like the old movies a great deal. They remind me of who I was, where I came from. And I want to end off with a clip over here, which I'll play with a certain amount of time, which is really a clip from 50 years ago. And it's a film over here which you might remember. The film was called Gigi. It is a 1958-59 movie starring Maurice Chevalier. And that woman over there, her name is Hermione Gingold. Gigi was played, in fact, by Leslie Caron. Gigi is not in this particular scene over here. Leslie Caron was, in fact, had quite a famous affair and was named in court papers because she had a relationship with Warren Beatty. How did Warren Beatty come into this talk? Early on. He had a relationship with Annie Hall Worth, with Diane Keaton, that's right. Was he married to her? No. Diane Keaton was married how many times? None. She never married. She was celebrated as having different liaisons. So that was Gigi. And this movie is a movie about old folks referring to other times. By the way, the music was conducted and arranged by Andre Previn. And he, by the way, was married to, Andre Previn was married to Mia Farrow, who was also married to Woody Allen. So there's some connections. So in this particular clip, which isn't that long, but I'll play a little bit of it, it's a nostalgic moment. I'll stop it at one point before the final dramatic climax.
We met at 8.
I was on time.
No, you were late.
Ah, yes? I remember it well. We dined with friends.
We dined alone.
The tenor sang.
A baritone.
Ah, yes. I remember it well. That dazzling April moon.
There was none that night, and the month was June.
That's right. That's right.
It warms my heart to know that you remember still the way you do.
Ah, yes. I remember it well. How often I've thought of that Friday night when we had our last rendezvous. And somehow I foolishly wondered if you might, by some chance, be thinking of it too. That carriage ride.
You walked me home.
You lost a glove.
I lost a comb.
Ah, yes, I remember it well. That brilliant sky.
We had some rain.
Those Russian songs.
From sunny Spain.
Ah, yes, I remember it well. You wore a gown of gold.
I was all in blue.
Am I getting old?
I'll play the rest of it. It's very moving. So she corrects him so gently. Look at the relationship between them. Oh, if only I could have relationships like that. She corrects him with such gentleness, with such love. His memory is getting old. He's getting Ibbobottle. He's getting a little bit senile. He doesn't really remember what's happening, but there's such a warmth between them. And the warmth is so evocative. I see this couple. I see the sky. We'll see at the very ending what they do with the sky and the scene over there. And she's managing him. She's in that old classical female role. She's there for him. She's managing him. She remembers. He's warm. He's a little bit losing it now, but she's there and containing him. It's such a classic scene. And when I watch this, I realize how damn old I am. How I'm out of date. And then in the last 1 minute clip over here, you'll see it. She flips into the most magnificent moment. It's 50 years old. For me, you can't beat it, but there's not much of it to be had, so you might as well enjoy it.